I think Robert Whittaker is going to get robbed this weekend by the UFC. I think the UFC has gotten so good at setting up these robberies to set up the next title fights. You can actually predict them now. I talked about it yesterday in my predictions video, and I want to just cover it a little bit more because I'm actually worried about this one. I can see it coming a mile away, and some YouTubers in the past have talked about this before, how the UFC has robbed these fighters, and some of the judging has been a little bit sus, and they've started to notice a pattern. I think that pattern has become so predictable, we can actually start to work it into our upcoming fight predictions, guys. I think Robert Whittaker is going to get robbed worse than the pay-per-views this weekend on the streaming sites. At first, just like, let's look at the history of the UFC when you've got contenders or you've got iffy decisions in the judging. As we know, and as has been talked about in the past, it always sets up a benefit for the UFC. And Robert Whittaker is the kind of fighter where he's got the problem now. He's got the Max Holloway problem where he's already fought the champion twice, and fighting him a third time isn't going to be great for pay-per-view sales. I mean, if it happens, it happens. It'll work out. The fight's in Australia. Sean Strickland's also there in the background, but I can see them wanting to set up this Dricus Du Plessis storyline, and with the way that Robert fights and the way that he point scores, he's not really known for finishing people. I can see a robbery happening as well. Guys, do you remember Kai Kara-France versus Amir Albazi? The judge Chris Lee gave Amir Albazi the 4th round in that fight, which essentially gave him the win. That is a fixed card. If you go back and watch the fight, there is no way in hell you can go back and give Amir Albazi that round. So that screams of the UFC setting something up. And Kai Kara-France has already fought Moreno twice. So what are you going to do? You give Amir Albazi a bit of a smooth scorecard, and all of a sudden you got a fresh new contender coming up the ranks. And this isn't the only time that this has happened. I'm sure we all remember Petr Yan versus Sean O'Malley, yeah? Anyone who was watching that fight was scoring it live for Petr Yan. If you go back and think about the articles that came out after that fight, but what do you know, the upcoming pay-per-view star Sean O'Malley gets the nod, and he has essentially been held in reserves until he is ready for a title fight. It's very strange how the UFC always seems to win on these controversial decisions. Paddy Pimblett, Jared Gordon. 2 judges gave the very first round to Paddy Pimblett, and that was a close fight towards the end of the fight, but that first round was the clearest round of all, and Paddy Pimblett lost that round. But the judges just started off the night by scoring it to Paddy Pimblett. And then, of course, there is the golden boy of the UFC, the man that gets all the favors, Israel Adesanya versus Yoel Romero. Do you guys remember that fight? That fight was one of the most boring fights in history, which made it extremely hard to score. And the judges, because that was extremely hard to score, not knowing which way that was going, just started giving the last round to Izzy, which was the round that he clearly lost, keeping their UFC pay-per-view star safe. This isn't the only time the judges have done that. There's countless of examples of where the UFC has these weird, iffy decisions, and it just seems to benefit the upcoming star. Now, how is this going to play into the fight this weekend? Like I said, the UFC has gotten so used to this and so good at just moving on from the controversy that the news cycle just happens. And I think it's going to happen again this weekend. When you look at the fight coming up between Dricus and Robert Whittaker, Dricus Du Plessis is going to come out hard. He's going to come out aggressive. Robert Whittaker is going to be creating range. He's going to be jabbing. He's going to be leg kicking. And it's going to be a round where you could easily score it towards Dricus Du Plessis. And then as the fight goes on, I believe that Dricus Du Plessis is going to start to gas and Robert Whittaker is going to start to pull away. I wouldn't be surprised if we see all the judges give that first round to Dricus Du Plessis. And in the second round, this is where things are going to start to get a little bit spicy. Second round is going to be competitive. It's where you're going to start to see Dricus Du Plessis slowly start gassing. He's still going to try and be aggressive and swinging heavy shots. This is the key. He's going to be swinging heavy shots, and Robert Whittaker is going to be peppering him with heavy jabs, heavy leg kicks, heavy high kicks, might score a takedown, and we're going to see a couple of the judges weirdly score a round that was clearly Robert Whittaker's on activity and damage towards Dricus Du Plessis, giving Dricus Du Plessis the first 2 rounds. You can see this coming a mile away. I am like so worried that this is going to happen. I can just feel it in my bones that the world is going to be talking about how Robert Whittaker won that fight and Dricus Du Plessis is going to get the nod, and it's just going to kill me inside. It's going to kill me. And then, of course, we're going to get into the last round. Robert Whittaker is going to win the last round. He's going to be putting on all the damage, and everyone's going to be going, oh, wow, that was a close fight. You'd have to give it to Robert Whittaker, though, in those last 2 rounds. And we're all going to be talking about what a close fight that was. Robert Whittaker is going to jump up onto the cage. He's going to start smashing the Southern Cross and screaming. And then the scorecards are going to get read out, and it's going to be a split decision. And they're going to give it to Dricus. They're going to give it to Dricus. And then the MMA media will rally behind it because they're paid to stick to the company line. The MMA media will rally behind it about what a close fight it was and how Dricus got the nod. And they're going to try and shove Dricus into the Sydney card on 2 months' notice. And Israel Adesanya is going to handle him easily. What are we going to do? What are we going to do? We need to start a hashtag on Twitter and on Instagram and on the UFC YouTube comments saying hashtag robbery for Robert before it even happens. Because it's going to happen again. And if it does, I need to make this video as a record to be like, you see, I called it. And if I didn't call it, I'm going to delete this video and that way I can pretend to be right. Guys, let me know down in the comments. How do you see this fight going? This is the way I see it going. It's got me extremely nervous. I was up all night thinking about it, talking to my girlfriend about it. She wanted me to shut up. Let me know down in the comments, what do you think? How do you think this fight is going to go? I can't wait for Saturday night. I'll see you guys in the next video. Leave your thoughts down in the comments.